Rise of the Underworlds is officially less than a week away. Today we got a number of spells and followers revealed. Today was kind of the variety day. We got 10 total cards, and since there's so many, we're just going to dive right in. Starting with Field Promotion. This is a 2-cost burst spell from Demacia, and it reads, the next time you play a unit this round, grant it Scout. It's now an elite. Important things to note. This says unit, so it affects champions. Yes, you can live your Teemo dream. That also means for me personally, and where I think it might end up seeing the most use, is that Shyvana has a lot of potential to level up the turn you play her. If you've got the mana to field promote and you've already played a Dragon Chow, playing Shyvana into the Chow means she strikes it, and then you get the attack with the Scout and then the regular attack as well. So you could level her up right out of the gate, and then because it's Grant and it's a permanent Scout, every round after that, your Shyvana is going to be generating 2 strafing strikes. So I think there's a lot of power there as well. Obviously, there's a number of ways to abuse this. Plenty of units have attack effects that you want to take advantage of. A lot of people are excited about this card, and I think rightfully so. That being said, it is worth highlighting that it doesn't do anything to protect the unit. It does cost you a card and 2 mana. So it is a bit of a risk reward card, because with the exception of somebody like Jarvan, every time you play this card, you're also playing a unit following it. And then that is passing priority. Your opponent's going to have the opportunity to respond in most cases. Now, they could be doing this at the end of a turn to set up an open attack, but, you know, just normal play patterns, they're going to have a chance to respond. And if they do so by nuking your unit, you've kind of walked into a 2-for-1. And again, this doesn't do anything additional to protect the unit. So this is great on something that has built-in protections. This is insane on something like Ruin Runner, for example. But in just general use cases, if they already had the answer for your unit and you are a bit greedy, you could get punished for it. So you should expect to see this card when the expansion launches, because I expect folks to be experimenting with it. So bookmark it in your mind, remember it, play around it, etc. Moving on, Fabled Poro. This is a 4-cost Freljord unit. It is in fact a Poro, as the name suggests. It has a 2/5 body, and it says, when I am summoned, grant all ally Poros a random keyword. So the important pieces to note here are that it affects itself. So you get a 2/5 random keyword Poro, just always. But I think the real value here is for Heart of the Fluffed combo decks, because you want to jam as many keywords as possible onto that thing, and this is a great way to do it. Outside of that, unless you're playing a dedicated Poro deck, maybe like something that I played at the charity event, I don't know that this is going to end up very good. I think that it'll see decent play in something like Expeditions, and it will certainly see plenty of meme plays. I know that I will probably do something with it, but as far as like competitive viability goes, I don't expect this to pop up very often. Next up, we have Abominable Guardian. This is an 8-cost Yeti from Freljord. It has a 5/5 body, and it's got quite a bit of text here. It says, round start, if you have 2 or more Yetis, summon me from hand and create a copy of me in your deck. But also play draw a Yeti. So if played from hand, it is an 8-cost 5/5 draw a Yeti specifically from your deck. But on round start, if you have 2 or more Yetis, it gets summoned for free. Now it is summoned there, so you don't get the draw a Yeti portion, but you do get a free 5/5. As somebody who lived through Elnux, I'm already having nightmares of Yeti Yearling. And if your opponent's attacking on odds, round 2, you spend your mana, and then after you've spent your mana, so there's no removal available, they play 2 Yeti Yearlings, goes back to their priority because it's the start of round 3, and then, oh, oops, here's 3 5/5 Yetis, and they're swinging for 17 in the open attack. That scares me. Is that going to happen often? No. Very low percentage play. But it will only take once to piss me off. So I'm having nightmares. That being said, I don't think, unless it's a very Yeti dedicated deck, I don't think this is going to see a lot of play. I think the other Yetis are better at being general purpose Yetis. I don't see this unseating any of the ones in the Overwhelm archetype, for example. So I think this is a build around card, and it'll be fun when it works for you, and it will not be fun when it works against you. And thankfully, I don't think it'll be super popular. Next up, we have Blade Dance support, everybody's favorite. Defiant Dance is a 4-cost Ionia spell. It says recall a unit. Blade Dance 1, but thankfully this is a slow spell, and that means that this is not going to be a played spell. I do not think that this overtakes Homecoming and its usefulness, so it's competing with that slot directly and it just doesn't win. Similarly, if you want to recall your own units, because it is technically recall a unit, I don't see how this beats lead and follow either. This is, in my opinion, an expeditions addition to the archetype to kind of help that out. I don't know if it even needed help. It felt like Blade Dance was fine in expeditions. Maybe it's meant to dilute the pool in expeditions. I don't know. But right now, I am not impressed with this card, and I think that's a good thing. All right, I said we had 10 cards, so we're going to move on to the next graphic. Next up, we have Starlit Epiphany. This is a 3-cost burst spell from Targon, and it just says invoke. Wait, what? There's more text on there? Oh, right. It also says, if you have a celestial ally, replace your deck with 20 copies of Behold the Infinite. This is surprisingly interesting, and I think it will make Targon decks as a one-of, because you do get to the point late game where you just want to start dropping bombs over and over or having big impact plays, and replacing your deck, especially if you know what's left in your deck, with just a bunch of Behold the Infinite makes sense. But you don't want to do that till late game, because you are essentially taxing your draws. Every round is a Behold the Infinite, and then you have to pay 2 mana to do the invoke and then play the card that you invoked for. So you don't want to do this till late game, but in Targon lists there is some room for this being viable. But again, you don't want to do this all the time, so I think this will end up being a one of in most of those lists. It is worth noting though that this potentially bails you out against the Watcher. It's not uncommon in the Targon matchup for you to do a bunch of invoking while they are setting up their combo, and then there's this flurry of back and forth where, you know, they play Matron copying the Watcher, and then you play Crescent Strike, and then they Fading Memories the Watcher and play the ephemeral one, and then you Equinox it, and then they play the real one and you're out of options and out of mana, and they get the attack off or whatever, right? That does sometimes happen, and in those instances, if you have a celestial ally on the board, you could wait for it to attack and then just play Starlit Epiphany, and now you've got a deck again with 20 cards in it. So just be aware that that is a thing that can happen. Not much else to say about it though. Like I said, it's really just more invoke. We're used to that with Targon. I think it'll be like a one of in some lists. Moving on. Heavens Aligned. This is a 1-cost focus spell from Targon, and it says Daybreak, create a random Nightfall card in hand. Nightfall, create a random Daybreak card in hand. I really like this for Nightfall decks in particular, because the Daybreak portion means giving you more Nightfall fuel, and at focus speed and at 1 cost, it's very cost effective for you to set up your plays, and it replaces itself so you don't go down in that kind of, you know, card tempo. So I like this card. I think it'll see play in Nightfall archetypes. Maybe it sees play in Daybreak as well. It's kind of hard to say just because Daybreak's not a super popular archetype to begin with. So it's been a bit since we've seen a truly refined version. It might make the cut there, but I really like it for Nightfall lists. Moving on. Etakan, Bringer of Ruin. This is a 10-cost Noxus follower. It has a 5/12 body, and it has Overwhelm. But it says on attack, increase my power by the total power of all allies. Now it's all allies, so that counts itself. So at a minimum, when it attacks, it goes up to a 10/12 Overwhelm. That is pretty silly, and I dig it. And I also am dying, just for meme purposes, we'll go back to this graphic real quick, to field promote or Atakan here, because I think he just wants to attack more than once, you know? He wants that increase in power over and over and over again. I don't know if this card is good enough to end up seeing competitive play, because it's just like other expensive Noxus followers. It doesn't have the immediate impact that Farron does. So Leviathan is a great example. I love Leviathan, but one Equinox and now you have an expensive 5/8. This is kind of that same boat. You don't get immediate value like you do with Farron. Farron at least creates decimates in your hand. So if they answer your Farron, you still have the decimates. That's a con here. Very, very cool and flavorful. But if you play Atakan and this eats an Equinox, now you just have Leviathan 2.0. So I'm sure I will make something with him and I'll have a lot of fun doing it, but ultimately I don't think that it'll crack the competitive landscape if Targon is popular. Next up, we have Thorned Blade. This is a 4-cost Noxus burst spell that says give an ally +5/+0 this round. And this is a very boring spell that does a lot of work. On Twitter earlier today, I said this is the most interesting boring card we've seen revealed in some time. The reason that I like it is that it is a great card for Reputation to counter Frostbite. If you've played a lot of Reputation decks and then you've ran into like Ash Noxus, you know how annoying that is because you just never get Reputation credit. But if they Frostbite your unit and then you answer with this is that magic number 5, so you get that Reputation credit. Other potential great uses for this is that the +5 makes it big enough of a threat to threaten some of the more important units that are normally harder to kill. So I'm thinking about things like Thresh. The new Rek'Sai is going to fall into that bill, but even stuff like Screeching Dragon, where if they're challenging your 1/1s in the past, you didn't have great ways to kill them. And the card that is going to see the most comparisons to Thorned Blade is Elixir of Wrath, and that is a card that is far more cost effective. That is 1 mana for a +3/+0. You're paying 3 more mana for only 2 more power here. So it's very easy to sleep on Thorned Blade, but Thresh challenging your 1/1 doesn't care about an Elixir of Wrath. It does worry about a Thorned Blade. And there are a number of use cases like that. I don't know if that's going to justify the extra cost. My gut says no, but it's at least interesting. So like, I'm very curious to see where this ends up landing and how it's used from a deck building perspective. So like I said, my gut tells me it probably won't see a ton of play, but I'm going to keep my eye on this one. That's it for this graphic though. We're going to move on. Last 2 cards are Shadow Isles cards. First up, we have Astral Fox. This is a 4-cost 3/3 fearsome in Shadow Isles, and on play it says kill an ally to deal 3 to the enemy nexus. So it's a 3/3 fearsome with built-in burn and slay support. I like this card. This card will find a home, whether it's in some form of burn deck. I think Elise Spiders would actually like to run this. Decks that traditionally run Doom Beast probably want to run this. I could see it maybe even finding its way into something like Nasus Thresh just to get more chip damage in, but I don't know, it's kind of competing with Spirit Leech for draw at that point. I do think that this is good enough to find a home though. I like this card. Last, we have the Twisted Tree Line. This is a 3-cost Shadow Isles landmark, and it has a special place in my heart as somebody who played a lot of 3 versus 3 League of Legends. This says, once I've seen 3 fearsome allies attack, destroy me and summon Vilemaw. And that's it. Not a lot to really write home about there. If you don't remember, Vilemaw is the same unit that is also summoned from the spell from the base set that you've probably forgotten about because nobody plays it. I at least think Twisted Tree Line could maybe find a home in something like a Mist Wraith deck or a Spider deck. I don't think it's going to make a huge splash though. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but that's it. That's it for the reveals. So if you made it this far, I want to know which one you are most excited about. Do you think any of them are busted? Do you think any of them are meme worthy? I know which ones I can't wait to build around, but I'd like to hear from you. And that's it. So until next time, may you walk on warm sands.